Hey, I'm going to talk a few minutes about spraying with using herbicides with an ATV mounted sprayer. For those of you who are kind of new to that, I'm going to give you some of my tips and tricks. The good news about this is that precision is not really required. It's pretty hard to screw this up. If you just know a few things, you'll pretty much do a decent job of spraying your food plots and starting out with a good clean slate. Just to talk about that, the first year that you plant a food plot, I've typically recommended that you spray it 3 times, usually about towards the end of May, 1st of June, and then again in the middle of summer, and then again in August. I've kind of changed that a little bit because I think that second spraying might not be necessary, and so maybe the second spraying, you might want to just use a backpack sprayer and do just some spot spraying on areas you missed or where it's required. But I think you can get away with 2 sprayings in your first year, and it'll still be very effective and give you a good start for your new food plot. But let's talk about what you'll be looking for when you go to the store. And you'll be able to find what you need. The herbicide that I'm going to recommend to you is called glyphosate. That's the main ingredient in it. You might know it as Roundup, but it's got lots of different generic versions, but the main ingredient is glyphosate. What you want to do is look on the label and look for the word glyphosate, and you want 41%. That's what we're looking for, the stuff with 41% gly in it. Now, there's also, depending on what brand you buy, you'll see it might have the word like extra, or in this case it's called plus. That means that they're adding a surfactant to it. It's got an additive that actually helps the herbicide adhere to the plants a little bit better, so it's a little bit more effective. So I usually buy it because why not, right? The other thing you're going to want to buy is, this is a 51 pound bag of ammonium sulfate. This is like fertilizer actually. It's looks kind of like this, just kind of coarse table salt, and we're going to add that to our mixture as well because that's going to make it more effective. I don't know how it works or why it works, but that's the way I was taught, and it works. So now let's talk about doses a little bit. For what we want to do this first spraying and your third spraying, we're going to use 2 quarts of glyphosate per acre and about 1 quart of ammonium sulfate. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a measuring cup here, easy to read. That's the doses that you're going to need. There's going to be different times that I'll cover maybe in future videos where you might only want to half that dose and only use 1 quart per acre. I'm also going to talk in a couple of minutes about how to calibrate your sprayer so that you're getting the right amount of glyphosate on to an acre. So that's pretty much all you need to know about what you need to buy and the tools you're going to need, other than the sprayer and the 4-wheeler itself, which is right here. So let me as you're starting to fill your sprayer, the first thing I would do, I'd highly recommend you do this, is put about 7 or 8 gallons in your sprayer and then turn it all on and make sure it's working right before you ever add anything to it. Make sure your pump's working, your nozzles are working. The reason you want to do that is because if something's not working right, you don't want 25 gallons of mixed herbicide in your tank and then have to deal with a problem of some kind. It'll be very inconvenient for you. So once you know everything's working good, you've got some water in there, I'd fill it up to about 10 gallons probably, and then we're going to add our ammonium sulfate because that needs some time to dissolve. So go ahead and dump in there. So if you're going to spray 2 acres, so if we're going to fill our sprayer up all the way to 25 gallons, you're going to use 2 quarts for the 2 acres of ammonium sulfate. Put that in there, and then you might want to let it sit for 20 or 30 minutes. And you could even agitate it if you want. Get maybe a paint stir stick and agitate it. Make sure it's mixed up well. The stuff dissolves pretty fast. It's made to be sprayed. It's soluble. So I've never had any problems with it not dissolving in time, but the place where I spray is about 2 miles away from here, and it's on gravel roads that I drive to, and so there's lots of vibration and curves and sloshing around that kind of helps mix it up for me. if you don't have that particular situation, you just want to be aware that you can let that ammonium sulfate dissolve for a little while before you add the glyphosate. So let's talk for a couple minutes about calibrating your sprayer. I'm going to tell you how I did it, and I think it'll work good for you. It's not the most precise way, but I think, like I said, it doesn't need to be precise. So what you want to do is try to get those 2 quarts of glyphosate in your mixture onto 1 acre of ground. And the way you do that is, if you wanted to be precise, what you do is you would mark off an acre somewhere. You'd fill your tank up to about 12 or 13 gallons, and then you would drive at a particular miles per hour, like let's just say 7 miles per hour, administer the spray, and if you got to the end of your acre of spraying before you got to the end of your water, then you know that you drove too fast, etc. Or if you ran out of spray, then you drove too slow. So what I've done is I go about 7 miles an hour, and that seems to be the magic number for me. That works for my particular setup. If I go 7 miles an hour, it will distribute my entire tank over 2 acres, 25 gallons roughly over 2 acres. So it might take a little trial and error for you to get it right. And if you want to actually mark it out and try to calibrate it, you can do that. But I would start with 7 miles per hour. That's a good speed. It's not too fast, it's not too slow, and it should work for you. A couple more quick tips for you on spraying using an ATV mounted sprayer. You've got a pressure gauge up here. I would recommend you set that at about 20 pounds per square inch. If you go any higher than that, the mist is going to make it a little bit less effective. You want a little bit bigger water droplets at the lower pressure. I think it'll be more effective for you. One other thing, once you're getting down to the bottom of your tank, your pump is going to start sucking air and start sputtering a little bit, and you're going to want to try to get every last drop onto the field. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Once you get down there and there's still maybe a gallon or a little bit less in your tank, if you've sprayed everything you need to spray, I would just shut it off, and what you can do then is just drain what's left in your tank into one of these, label it pre-mixed glyphosate, and then you'll use it in many other ways in your habitat work. You can put that in your backpack sprayer, and there's plenty other opportunities to utilize that. So just thought that might be helpful to you guys. So I just want to make a couple comments about glyphosate in terms of safety. If I thought this was harmful to me, I wouldn't use it, okay? But with that said, it still makes sense to take some precautions. So when I handle glyphosate, when I'm actually pouring it, dispensing it, putting it in my tank, I wear gloves typically. And the other safety precaution I take is that when it's breezy, like it is right now, I would never spray under these conditions. And there's really 2 reasons for that. The one is the safety thing, because if the mist from your spray, if the wind comes up and swirls and you inhale some of that, it can't be good for you. I mean, it's just better not to inhale glyphosate. And the other thing is it's not going to be as effective in terms of killing the vegetation. So don't spray when it's breezy out. Pick mornings, pick evenings when it's calmer. I would say wind breezes under 5 or 6 miles per hour is your best bet. One last tip for you. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say. When you're out there driving across the field, it's going to be difficult in some cases to know where you've already driven and where you've already sprayed. Now, so what I do to deal with that is I will often spray in the mornings when there's a little bit of a dew on the field that I'm spraying, because that allows me to actually see my tire tracks from where I previously already sprayed. So that's just one little tip. There are dyes that you can buy and put in the mixture that helps you to see it, but I don't know if that works very well. So you're just going to have to use your tire tracks as much as possible. And if you go over the same areas more than once, there's really no harm in that. So again, precision is not the most important thing with this. Just use your head, get it done, be smart, and you'll be impressed with how effective it is. Don't get too eager though. It takes about 10 to 14 days before you'll actually see it killing the plants. But you'll be impressed. After about 2 weeks, it kills just about anything it touches, as long as it's something that's growing actively. So that's all I got. I'll see you in your next video.